just to see things one more time. So when we are classifying our trinomials, we do it based on degree and number of terms. The words that deal with degree: constant, linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic. Number of terms is monomial, binomial, trinomial, polynomial. So when I'm looking at this one, it's x to the first. If it's x to the first, what my degree is 1, what do we call that? Okay, there are 2 terms. 2 terms would be binomial. All right, B. There's no x. If it's to the 0 power, there's no x's, what do we call it? Constant. There's only 1 term. 1 term is monomial. All right, we'll try to come back and hit the others here in a few minutes, but I want to make sure I get through a couple of each. When we're writing polynomials in standard form, it's highest to lowest power. Let's look at B. This one has 2 variables. If there's more than 1 variable, you do it alphabetical. So x comes first in the alphabet. So I'm looking for the highest power of x first. So that's my 2x to the third. My next highest power of x is negative x squared y. My next highest is x to the first, so negative 3xy squared. And then my 8y cubed doesn't have any x's, so that's last. So standard form, highest to lowest power. If it's multiple variables, do it based off the one that comes first in the alphabet. Let's go ahead and do A. I see a lot of people erasing right now. Which one would come first on A? 3a to the fourth. Fourth is the highest power. The next highest is? Next highest? A squared minus 7a and minus 4. So, standard form, highest to lowest power. Then we got into the operations. So I'm going to work through maybe the evens to start with. If I look at number 4, you have to watch. If it is subtraction, you change it to plus and you distribute the negative to every term. Then you combine like terms. Like terms have the same variables, but remember, when you add them, the variable doesn't change. It's like if I take 8 apples plus 6 apples. When I add them together, I still have apples. Okay, it doesn't turn into anything different. So 8y squared plus negative 6y squared would be a positive 2y squared. Negative 4y plus negative 5y. So negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9y. Plus 7. All right, on number 6, what would I have to do first? Distribute. When you're multiplying, the variables do change. I have negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Y times y, you add those exponents together, so y squared. Negative 4 times negative 11 is positive 44, we still have the y. Plus 2y times 3y is 6y squared. 2y times 10 is 20y. But you're not done. What do you have to do next? So 20y squared plus 6y squared. When you add them, they're still y squared, so negative 20 plus 6 is negative 14y squared. 44y plus 20y. 44 plus 20 is 64y. Are we okay on those? Make sure if you have a mistake, you fix it. If you're struggling with something, tell me, and I'll work out some more like that or figure out what your question is. If we look at problem 8, when you are multiplying, you have to take everything in the first times everything in the second with FOIL. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 3y is negative 6xy. 5y times x is positive 5xy. 5y times negative 3y, so that would be a negative 15y squared. But we're not done. What do you need to look for? Like terms. These have the same variables, so I can combine them together. So -6 plus 5 is -1, or just negative xy minus 15y squared. Number 10. When it says 5y minus 1 squared, what does that mean?
Correct, that's why.
Means you have 5y minus 1 times 5y minus 1. Order of operations tells me I have to multiply before I add and subtract. So now if I multiply these, we have to FOIL. 5y times 5y. So 5 times 5 is 25. Y times y is y squared. 5y times -1 is -5y. -1 times 5y is -5y. -1 times -1 is +1. That's my multiplication, but we still have these other terms. -2y squared plus 3. So now we look for like terms, things that are the same. 25y squared and -2y squared. So 25 minus 2 is 23y squared. -5y plus -5y would be -10y. 1 plus 3 is +4. So on these multiplication problems, make sure you multiply it all out and then look for anything you can put together. Like terms have the same variables. When you add and subtract, those variables do not change. They only get changed when we're multiplying or dividing. So if we look at number 12, this is a division problem. When we have that, we think of each thing as being divided by the denominator. So when we divide these, what's 27 divided by 3? With the variables, you have 4 c's on top and 2 on the bottom. What do we do with those exponents? So 4 minus 2 is 2. With my d's, 7 minus 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. C to the third over c squared. 3 minus 2 is just 1. D's, 5 minus 3 is 2. So that's our final answer. Just as a side note, what if I gave you a problem like this? So it's just one thing to divide. 18 divided by 9, or 18 divided by 9 is 2. You have 3 a's on top and 1 on the bottom. So that would give us 2 b's on top, 1 on the bottom. When I look at my c's, do we have more on top or bottom? On the bottom. So remember, in that case, it ends on the bottom. 3 minus 1 is 2. So you can have a variable left on the bottom if there were more there to start with. You still subtract the exponents, just leave it on the bottom. Alright, that's the old stuff we were reviewing. Are there any questions over that right now? Like I said, if I have enough time, I'll come back and work some of those other problems. Now let's review our factoring. Let's start with, we'll do problem 14. On any factoring problem, what do you have to look for first? So when I look at this, I can take a 2, an m, and an n out of everything. So when you take it out, it doesn't go away, you just put it in front. 32 divided by 2 is 16. You had 3 m's, you took out 1, so 2 left. We took our n's. Minus 50 divided by 2 is 25. I took the m's and the n's. But am I done? No, because this is still a difference of squares. So, it's just like our other factoring, 16m squared. We need to split it up. The square root of 16 is 4. M squared, they each get an m. But in order for those middle terms to cancel, we need a plus and a minus, and then square root of 25 is 5. Did you guys get that one? Fixing it if you made a mistake. Number 16. What do we need to look for first? Greatest common factor, every problem. Check if there's greatest common factor. In this case, we don't have a number, but they all have n's, so we can take an n out. So you had 3, you took 1 out, so 2 left. 5 n squared divided by n is n. 50n divided by n is 50. Now we're factoring. What multiplies to negative 50, adds to negative 5? Positive 5 times negative 10. Positive 5 plus negative 10. So the n we took out stays. Then we have an n plus 5 and an n minus 10. I want to work problem 17. Do we have a greatest common factor? No, so we slip and slide. So that's, when I do that, we have m squared minus m. 14 times 4 is 56. So you're looking for two numbers. So multiply negative 56, add to negative 1. What numbers work? Plus 7 and minus 8. But be careful, we aren't done. We started out multiplying the 4, so now we divide our 4. 7/4 doesn't reduce, so the 4 slides in front. So 4m plus 7. Here 8 divided by 4 is 2. Are we getting these? Fixing mistakes if you need to. Number 19. With 4 terms, what did we look at?
Put parentheses or two.
We did grouping. Now remember, you can't put a parenthesis after the negative, so first you have to make this negative 5. All right, what can you take out of that first parenthesis? So if I take out my 4x squared, that leaves me with x plus 3. Negative 5x and negative 15, what can we take out? 5. And since they're both negative, let's do a negative 5. So take that out. Negative 5x divided by negative 5 is positive x. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. Then we look, they both have x plus 3, so we take that out. And that leaves us with 4x squared minus 5. Let's do 21. What do you have to do first on this one? We need greatest common factor first, then slip and slide. So when I look, all of these are even numbers, so I could take out a 2 to start. Then we can slip and slide. So that's r squared plus 8r minus 20. What multiplies to negative 20 adds to positive 8? We would have to do 2 times 10, it would be positive. We need one of them to be negative, so it would have to be negative 2 and positive 10. So r minus 2, r plus 10. Now, the 2 that I factored out is still there, but we have to undo our slip and slide. We multiplied by 4, so we have to divide it. Make sure you are reducing those first, even if you have to write out that step. 2 over 4 is 1/2. 10 over 4 is 5/2. So then you slide your denominator in front. So we have 2 times 2r minus 1 times 2r plus 5. All right, 22, 23, 24. Do you need me to work one of those? None of those? I want to talk about 25 and 26. Uh, 25. A squared and b squared. They're both perfect squares, but it's a plus. Difference of squares is a plus b, a minus b. When you FOIL that, you get a negative. So a squared minus b squared. Can we factor them if they're adding? No. What do we put if we can't factor something? Okay, when I look at 26, I need things that multiply to 8 and add to -3. Things that multiply to 8, 1 and 8, 2 and 4. If they add up to a positive, their signs are the same. Do either of those add up to -3? So what does that tell me? So if you can't factor it, they are prime. All right, the next few, everybody needs to pay close attention here. We've had some questions about it. You'll notice there's 3 different questions on the study guide asking about it. So it's probably going to be on your test. There's several things about area. In general, if you were finding area of a rectangle, write this down if you need to. Area is length times width. In a square, the sides are the same. So my length is 3x minus 2. My width is 3x minus 2. Is everybody paying attention? So I have to multiply those. I have to take 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. How do we multiply those? Boy. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times -2, -6x. -2 times 3x, -6x. -2 times -2 is +4. When we add like terms, -6 plus -6 so my area, 9x squared minus 12x plus 4. So you have to know 2 things. You have to know what area it is, length times width. You're just multiplying them. And then you have to be able to multiply it out. Alright, so everybody have the correct answer on their paper before we move on to the next one. Okay, so somebody has to tell me how to do this one. Okay. Area, length times width. So 4x plus 1 times x squared minus x plus 3. How do I multiply those? We start this reading. So 4x times x squared. 4x times -x. 4x times 3. We're taking everything in the first times everything in the second. Now I have to take 1. 1 times x squared. It's x squared. 1 times -x. -1x. 1 times 3 is 3. Am I done?
No.
No. Like terms. 4x cubed. Are there any other x cubes?
No.
Negative 4x squared plus 1x squared.
-3x squared.
12x minus 1x.
11x.
And the plus 3. Okay. 29. Put a big star next to this. It's a multi-step problem. We had it on some homeworks. We had it on quiz. We're having it on the study guide. You're gonna have one on your test. I am asking for the area of the shaded region only. What we have here is really two rectangles, okay? You think about it, think like you have a board, and you're going to cut a corner out of the board. How much area is left? So what we have to do is start with the big rectangle. Start with the board itself. How do we find the area? Length times width. X times x plus 2. So if you do that, you distribute. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Now we need to know how much are we cutting out of the corner. So you look at this small rectangle. That's the amount you're going to cut away. Area is length times width. So 3 times 7 is?
21.
So to get the shaded region, it's what we started with minus what we cut away. So it's just the big one minus the small one. I'm not asking you to factor or anything. You just have to write that expression. Questions right there. Okay, let's go back to some of them we skipped over. Let's start with the old ones, but you guys have to tell me. On C, number 1C, my highest power is 2. So what do we call that? Quadratic. We have 3 terms. Remember, terms are separated by addition and subtraction. 3 terms would be? Okay, letter D, my highest power is 4. 4 is? Quart. I have 5 terms. What do we call that? Polynomial. Remember, polynomial is 4 or more. Alright, so on the test I would give you those words, but you have to be able to tell me what labels you use. Were you okay with that? We already worked both of those. Alright, number 3, be careful. When we originally got the study guide, people were trying to multiply here, but we are adding. So we add together what? Like terms. So 2x squared, this is a 1x squared. So 2x squared plus 1x squared. 3x minus 4x. 2 minus 1. So don't make life harder than it has to be. We're adding. Don't try to multiply there. On number 5, what do we have to do? Okay, when I multiply those, 9 times 5 is 45. What do I do with my C's? So 2 plus 2 is 4. D's, we have 1 and 2 more, so that's to the 3rd. You're taking this to every term. So 5 times 4 is 20. We had 2 C's, 3 more, gives us 5. 1D and 1D is D squared. Minus 2 times 5 is 10. We still have the C squared and the D. Are you guys confident you can add, subtract, and multiply there? What would I do on problem 7? FOIL. So when I FOIL, somebody has to tell me. Maybe I'll just pick on people. Riley, what's x times 4x?
4x squared.
Kaden, x times negative 3. I think you can multiply x times negative 3. Then you clearly haven't paid attention to anything we've done all day. Bailey, what's x times negative 3? Kale, what's negative 1 times 4x?
Negative 4.
Kylie, what's negative 1 times negative 3? Alright, like terms, we're looking at these in the middle. So we have a 4x squared. Negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7x plus 3.
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna be in here tomorrow. Can I take my test during the night?
Today?
Yeah.
Jetta, tell me what I would do first on number 9. So Blair n times n squared.
N to the 40.
Holden n times negative 3n.
Negative 3n squared.
Kylie, have I picked on you yet? Yeah. Gabe, n times 5.
5.
Keaton, 4 times n squared.
Minus 4n squared.
Positive 4n squared. Noah, 4 times negative 3n.
12 in.
And 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, I'm looking for like terms, so we have an n cubed. Negative 3n squared plus 4n squared. When you add those, the variables don't change. So negative 3 plus 4 is just 1. 5n and negative 12n. So 5 plus negative 12. And then we have the plus 20. Alright, so this is our older stuff. Last older problem that we have. When I am dividing, we do each one. So, Kate, what's negative 8 divided by 4? Negative 8 divided by 4?
Negative.
And with your variables, you subtract. So if you have 5 on top and 3 on the bottom, we are left with well, I just said you subtract them. What's 5 minus 3?
2.
Bailey, 28 divided by 4?
7.
You have 4 x's on top, 3 on the bottom, so you're left with?
1.
And Kale, if you divide anything by itself, what does that become? Factoring. First thing we look for on factoring is what? Greatest common factor. Make sure you get the greatest one. So these are all divisible by 3, but you can go bigger. They're all divisible by 9. Variable-wise, the things they all have is an x. So 54 divided by 9 is 6. You have 3 x's on top, 1 on the bottom. 3 minus 1 is 2. And you have a y. 18 divided by 9 is 2. You have 2 x's on top, 1 on the bottom, so x. 27 divided by 9 is 3. We took out the x, we have our y squared. And you just put that 9x in front. Didn't hardly leave myself enough space there. 15, there's no greatest common factor, but what can we do?
squares.
So one's plus, one's minus. Square root of 9 is 3. You have two x's, so they each get 1. Square root of 49 is 7. You have two y's, so they each get 1. So 3x plus 7y, 3x minus 7y. All right, number 18. So what do we need to do on this?
Just automatically factor.
All right, so what multiplies to negative 40 and adds to positive 3?
Negative 5 and 8.
Number 20, what can I do there?
You can take 3 out.
So that leaves us k squared minus 19k plus 60. All right, so now I keep my 3 and I want to know what multiplies to 60 and adds to negative 19. So if they multiply to a positive 60, I know my signs are the same. They add up to a negative, so they both have to be negative. What would it be?
Negative 4, negative 15.
So it's k minus 15, k minus 4. And you just keep your 3 in front. Is this helping, guys?
I need help with 13 though. I haven't been able to figure that one out.
13?
Yeah.
We already worked that one.
Oh.
That was the one I just did right before. The Gracetown factor, take out a 9x, and you're done.
Oh.
Because we have multiple variables, so it's not like a trinomial at that point. We're just finished. 22, 4 terms, what do we do? All right, Blair, what can I take out of the first one? Out of this first parenthesis, r cubed and 3r squared. What can we take out?
I'm on one page. Oh, I can take it r squared.
And that leaves us with r plus 3. If there's nothing that comes out, what do we put for that one?
4.
So for my final answer, we put the r plus 3. And then once I take that out, we're left with r squared plus 1. So when I'm looking at this, what multiplies to positive 32 adds to negative 12?
8 and 4.
So a minus 8, a minus 4. 24, what do we have to do? Slip and slide. So that's x squared minus 7x minus 60. So what multiplies to negative 60 adds to negative 7?
Negative 12 and 5.
Negative 12 times 5 is negative 60. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. So that gives us x minus 12 and x plus 5. And then what do we have to do? Divide our. Okay, make sure you're reducing. 12 over 10 would reduce to 6 over 5. 5 over 10 reduces to 1/2. So then you slide the denominator in front, so that's 2x minus 6. No, 5x minus 6. And 2x plus 1. I think we have gone through all of the problems. Are there questions? So test test is tomorrow. I will collect these study guides before the test. I don't want them today. Hang on to them. I'll take it before the test, so you should have